Hi, everyone, and happy Friday. It's that time again for the Heat Press for Profit podcast, where we are live streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. I am really excited for today's conversation. I say that every Friday, but this is a very unique conversation, one that we haven't really had on this channel. So it's going to be a first. So let's get started and welcome to the Heat Press for Profit podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen and join in on conversations. If you are watching with us live on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, make sure you shout out who you are and where you're tuning in from. And you guys know I love to know business names. This podcast is designed to have conversations with apparel decorators just like you and industry experts that can have an impact on your business. Today's conversation is about creating inclusivity in the workplace. Co-founder of Stakes Manufacturing, one of the largest enterprise print-on-demand companies in the country, and champion for a disability inclusion, Jed Seifert. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hop on our podcast, and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and happy Friday to everybody out there, and happy Hanukkah to anybody celebrating.
Now, you guys know during our live sessions, you guys are free to ask any questions. With Jed being here, now is a great time to get answers, any guidance, and we will definitely make sure that we get resources as well through the conversation. Now, Jed, tell us a little bit about you and what Stakes Manufacturing does, the brand, company, background, just give it all.
Sure. Yeah. So Stakes Manufacturing, as you mentioned, we're one of the largest print-on-demand enterprise print-on-demand companies in the country. We focus on both DTG and DTF. It's about half on each. And our business is really split into two divisions. One is our singles business, which is really direct-to-consumer e-commerce fulfillment. So you go to Beatles.com, you buy a shirt, that order automatically funnels to us via API. We print it and ship it within a few business days to the end consumer, white labeled as if we're the Beatles shop and we're Sony Music Group, right? The other half of our business is quick turn, low minimum wholesale. So just think about all the stuff that the screen printers don't want to take on because it's either too low a quantity or too high a color count. And we're turning those wholesale orders really quick and supporting retail events, people just replenishing their distribution facilities. So our facility is in Eastlake, just outside of Cleveland. So we've got a formal Walmart turned into a production facility. So you got 110,000 square feet of production space dedicated solely to digital printing. And we're an enterprise business, as you mentioned. So we're pretty much all B2B. So we work with large aggregators, whether they're aggregating hundreds of bands, teams, platform websites, designers, artists, all that good stuff. So, our business and why we're here is to talk about inclusion, and we're really proud that we're an extremely inclusive business. And oftentimes when people talk about inclusivity, they talk about race, religion, sexual orientation, but disabilities, when it comes to inclusion in employment, usually gets left out in the dark. And, my brother has disabilities, and him getting a job changed his life, gave him the ability to move out of my parents' house, get financial independence, find work friends, happiness, purpose, and be an active part of the community. And, when we started Stakes, our first initiative, day one, was to make sure that we wanted to provide the same life-changing opportunity that was provided to my brother to other individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities. But let me be clear, this is not charity. This is not, you might get the warm and fuzzies from hiring folks with disabilities, but we're talking about meaningful, mutually beneficial, meaningful employment, and employees held to the same standards as folks without disabilities. And some of our best employees actually have disabilities. So, currently over 10% of our staff, so we've got about 250 employees, and over 10% of our staff has intellectual and developmental disabilities. And as I mentioned, they're some of our best employees. Our top warehouse employee out of 40 is a gentleman with autism. Our top shipper out of 35 is a gentleman with autism, and that's based off of speed and accuracy KPIs alone. No advantages or anything else like that. And So yeah, and besides just being great employees, it's just truly changes the culture of our business and the fabric, of who we are. It started off as a vision of me and my business partner, Vince Bartozzi, who's been my best friend since I was 5, and a brother from another mother to both me and my brother. So it's something that's very personal to us. And when we set out on this mission, our goal was to not just to impact the lives of the people within the 4 walls of our building, but was to do things just like this, which was to get out on the streets, and really tell everybody about all the benefits of hiring people with disabilities, to help break down the stigmas and the preconceived notions that people have, but also give them the tools and of how to get started, and also kind of address some of their concerns about why they think their business can't do it, or why, it's going to be a challenge. And at the end of the day, we're a for-profit business. So, we need to make sure that we're performing at the highest level, no matter who we're hiring. But if you're not hiring folks with disabilities, you're just simply not, you're leaving out the largest minority in the country and some of the best employees you can get. And we're in a time where I think we'll all agree, whether you're in our industry or other industries, hiring people is a nightmare right now. And it doesn't look like it's getting, any better. And you've got this whole demographic of individuals who's excited, ready to go to work. And, it's time for the print industry to continue to evolve and tap into that resource.
Jed, that's there was so much information in what you just said, and I think it's really going to set up this conversation to just really dive in to extremely deep levels, not necessarily on the printing aspect, but really about creating community. And one thing that I am so big on in the print industry is community and relying on each other. But it's not just within our community, it's being inclusive to bringing others in. And I think some of our viewers that are listening right now have said some pretty amazing things. So Matt Kinnan said, happy to be here, heard about Stakes on a Rock podcast. Looking forward to the discussion today. And Brandy Franken said, oh my God, this is amazing. My brother is 38 and high functioning autism, and it brings me so much way to hear. Now, this one I think is pretty cool. My 9-year-old is on the spectrum. You are amazing and bring joy to my mama heart. So it's really great to be able to connect with people, not only because of our industry, but because of what you are really doing in our industry and in your business. Now, let's talk a little bit about the misconceptions with disability and in inclusivity, because I remember listening to you talk about the misconception that just because somebody has a disability is going to kill your production time, or they're not going to move as fast as others, they're not going to work as hard. And I remember you saying it was the complete opposite, and it really increased your productivity. So can you dive just a little bit kind of on what you've seen about the misconception where that has been said, but you've got the proof is in the pudding, right? It's increasing your production.
Yeah, so when we got started down this road, again, we're a for-profit business, so nothing we do can kind of change that. And all the warm and fuzzies in the world aren't going to make you, a profitable business. It's going to come down to performing at a high level, and we're in a quick turn business where it is very demanding partners who have high expectations of quick turn times, efficiency, accuracy. So it's imperative to have top level employees. And I think a lot of folks have this misconception about what people with disabilities can and can't do. And the reality is that there's a huge spectrum of folks with disabilities. I mean, we've got an individual with disabilities who's got a degree in cybersecurity from a major university. We have individuals with disabilities that are running, $750,000 cornea equipment. We've got individuals that are pressing, our transfers, with 300 some odd degree presses. And, I think that there's a lot of apprehension of people going, oh, well, they're going to slow down production. And even internally, we had the same concerns, right? When we got started, I remember we started in the warehouse because we thought that was sort of the most natural place to start. We've since expanded to pretty much every department. But day one of the warehouse, I told the warehouse manager, I was like, look, man, if this impacts your ability to hit your performance KPIs, you got to let me know, man, because you got to hit your numbers. We got to hit our numbers. And, about a month later, I went back to him and I said, hey, how's it going? And he said, it's going great. It's going great. And I go, all right, but give me the real. Like, this is impacting your performance? And he's like, no, Jed, these are some of my best, most reliable employees. And, you know, they're performing. Just look at the leaderboard, right? You know, and not only that, but you know, it's making my other employees work harder, right? It's teaching them empathy. There's more teamwork in my team than I've ever seen before, even cross-departmental teamwork, and not necessarily just with the individual with disabilities, but, you know, just bringing the entire team closer together and creating this, like you said, sense of community within our four walls. And you know, and I also the manager said something that was really touching, where he's like, look, man, a month ago I was just moving boxes of cotton around a warehouse. That was my job. Now I come to work and I feel like I have a purpose and I'm changing lives. Like, you know, if you're not like a doctor or an EMT, you know, or a teacher, like, how often do you get to say that you're changing lives on a regular basis? And, you know, not to say that printing t-shirts can't change lives. You know, we help causes and all types of things, but, you know, it's rare to get that sort of feeling coming to work. So yeah, it's been incredible. And again, you have some of your best employees, and it's just about, you know, the goal is making sure that you're setting up people for success. And that goes for whether people have disabilities or not. You know, our job as leaders, managers, owners is about cultivating people's strengths and putting them in a position to be successful and mitigating their weaknesses and disabilities, not focusing on what they can't do, but put them to what they can do. And, you know, depending on the disability and depending on the individual, there's different things that they're going to be successful with. Like, people with autism tend to be extraordinarily detail oriented, which is why, you know, that shipper I mentioned, our top shipper, has a 0% error rate, right? The same with the warehouse picker. It's like near 0% error rate because, you know, extremely detail oriented. But people don't think that. You know, people, when they think about disabilities, they think about like low skilled repetition. But the reality is high skilled repetition is just as important because there's such a spectrum of people with disabilities. But that repetition is really important because repetition, it's how people with disabilities learn. It's also how other people learn, but people with disabilities, really, it's how they learn, and it's also where they feel comfort and home and routine. And, you know, within my building, 95% of the jobs are repetitive day after day after day. And in those repetitive roles, that's also where you tend to have the most turnover and the toughest time retaining employees. So, you know, I think, you know, let's be very transparent. You might have to take a little bit longer to train the person, right? Instead of training them in 2 hours, maybe it takes you 6 hours, or instead of 1 day, maybe it takes you 2 days. For us, it was really more about changing the way that we train people, because all of our training documents were very text heavy. And a lot of the folks that we have that work for us aren't, you know, advanced readers. And so we just changed our training materials to be more visual. We also changed our training to be a little bit more, you know, just do it. Like, let me just go show you how to do it instead of me giving you something to read or, you know, step by step in this way. You know, and I think that that's also made our managers better, because at the end of the day, we should be tailoring our training to every individual, whether they've got disabilities or not, because some people learn better from hearing, some people learn better from seeing, some people learn better from just doing, right? So it's about just, again, it's about setting people up for success. And if you do that, you have some of your best employees, and they're going to be some of your most longest tenured employees. So we've seen our turnover rates go down. You know, our folks with disabilities are some of the most reliable with attendance, some of the most eager to come to work, excited, motivated, and it's contagious, right? It gets, you know, if you're getting your butt kicked in performance KPIs by somebody who's got disabilities and challenges that you don't have, it's hard to be lazy, right? And if you've got somebody who comes to work and they don't take it for granted, and they're excited and appreciative and just happy to be there every day, that's contagious as well. So this is a tremendous, widespread cultural impact on your business. And again, will impact your performance KPIs. And it's not just my business. There's tremendous studies out there. Sherm and a number of other folks have done studies, and inclusive businesses perform better. It brings, you know, different skill sets. It brings different mindsets, different ideas, and it brings your team to be a lot more cohesive in the way that they work with you and work together. And I think that outside of the business, I think people want to work with companies that are making a social impact. So I think it also encourages more business to come to you, because people know you're doing well, you know, for the community. So, again, you'll get some of your top performing employees, and it's just about putting in the right place. So we also have folks that do data entry, which is another position that a lot of people don't necessarily think of folks with disabilities, right? We have a lot of folks that do that type of stuff. So, there's disability employment service providers, which I know we're going to dive into, that will really work with your team to help make sure that you're kind of matching the right individual with the right position, and take sort of the thinking out of it. And I can kind of just dive right into how that whole program works if you want me to.
So go for it.
Yeah. So I think that's the biggest misconception. It's not just the misconception about the individuals and what they can do. The biggest misconception is I don't have the resources. I don't have the money. I don't have the managers that can handle this. I've never dealt with somebody with disabilities, but there's disability employment service providers all over the country. Some of them are federally funded, some are state funded, some are privately funded. But what they do is they will find you individuals with disabilities to work for you. They will find them, screen them, interview them, onboard them, help train them. They'll even help train your managers at zero cost to you as an employer.
That's incredible.
I'll repeat that, zero cost. Where else are you going to find a hiring agency that's not going to take 25 to 30% cut, right? And that hiring agency isn't going to help train your managers. And also, depending on the level of the service need, we have some individuals that have job coaches that are there every day. We have some individuals that applied to work for us just because we hire people with all abilities. They don't need a job coach. We've got some individuals that never even told us that they had disabilities until they found out how inclusive we were. And then at meetings admitted and said, hey, you're the first employer I've ever said that I have disabilities to, because you've created this kind of open atmosphere and it's safe place. So these disability employment service providers, again, the way they'll start is they'll come in. You don't even have to have an open position to start, right? You just reach out to them. They'll come in and they'll do an audit of basically all of your entry-level positions to help you figure out what's the best role to fill and the right person to fill that role. So, for example, I helped a screen printer set up a program, and they were certain they were going to hire this person, and they were going to be cleaning screens. But once this service provider came in, turns out that they had a big need for data entry, and there was a big gap in their business, and they had, they needed to hire somebody to do it. A bunch of different individuals were piecemealing it together, and that ended up being the perfect role for them. And they didn't know that going into it, and they didn't need to, right? Like, you allow these disability service providers to do the work for you. And again, they'll train your managers and help. And then if you ever get into a bind, a situation occurs that maybe your manager doesn't know how to handle, they call the job coach, and the job coach will show up. They'll fix it. And if they don't fix it, just like any other good hiring agency, they'll say, hey, maybe this person isn't a good fit. And then you replace them, because the other thing is, you got to hold people to real standards. And if people aren't performing or isn't a good fit, you don't keep them in that position just because of charity or, you feel bad because they have disabilities. You do that, it's going to be short-lived. Again, this has to be mutually beneficial, real deal employment with real deal standards that, that have a serious impact on your business. And these service providers really help support that whole thing, so that you don't have to worry about having the resources, the time, the management stuff. And going back to the story I told you before about sort of the warehouse, we had other managers. As soon as the program became successful and they saw how well people were performing, every manager, even ones who maybe would have been apprehensive before, like, oh, you're going to put more work on my plate, everybody's like, hey, we want in. How do we expand this program to our department? And now it's not a program. It's truly just the fabric of our business. And it's been pretty great. And what's been awesome to see is doing speaking engagements like this with you and interviews. We've helped a ton of people across the industry set up programs. We helped Corneat set up a program. We helped Rock set up a program. I recently made an introduction to M&R to help them set up a program. There's also a lot of smaller, screen printers and digital printers across the country who've reached out, and we've helped them. And when I say they've helped them, all we've really done is connected them with, a local disability employment service provider in their area to kind of help them down this journey, and also answer any questions that they might have, or, to kind of overcome any apprehension or concerns they might have about, what they should be prepared to, going into this. So
the the biggest thing I think is resources and not knowing how to get started, right? I think sometimes people just in any business, one of the biggest hurdles can be just doing or implementing or getting started or kind of going through that. Well, what if I mess it up? What if it hurts my business? What if it takes me too long to figure something out? And um, why would you not, when we are in a moment of time where finding people to work for you, people that want to go to work, and you have these resources that are actually going to help you in your business. So it's a big giant team effort to me is what it sounds like, in making sure that you know, people have jobs that they are excited to go to, but it's also beneficial for all parties involved. And then you also have that support, which again, like you said, it is free. Carly has posted some links in all of our platforms that we're streaming in. So YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. There are several resources that Jed has shared with me. So I don't know if we're going to be able to post them all, but if you want them, then you guys know that you can reach out or comment below, and we will make sure that we will get that entire list over to you. And of course, make sure that we are giving you guys the tools as well. Go ahead.
And guys, you can find me on LinkedIn too. I'd be happy to make the connections for you. And I think you also brought up a really good point, which is this fear of getting things wrong, right? And I think that's a lot of reason. The big reason I think people is like they're what we just talked about. But the fear of getting things wrong, I think, is another thing that stops people from hiring folks with disabilities. They're like, well, we don't know. We're going to screw things up. Let me tell you, you will. All right. But you're going to screw things up with employees that don't have disabilities. You're going to hire the wrong people that aren't going to be a good fit. You're going to mess up how you manage certain situations. I've been in the disabled community my whole life, starting when I was real young, coaching Special Olympics. It wasn't until 4 years ago when I hired my first deaf employee that I found out that they don't like being called hearing impaired. They just want to be called deaf. I didn't know that, right? Like, we had a meeting once. I had an impromptu meeting. So APSE, who's one of the resources that you're providing, is the National Trade Organization for Disability Employment Service Providers. And Stakes had the honor of being named National Employer of the Year last year, as voted for by the disability employment service providers across the nation. And, APSE, these guys, we got this nominated for this award, and I did this impromptu town hall, and I was so excited to tell the entire company how proud I was. I jumped up on a table, a couple hundred people listening to me talk. I wanted to make sure that our deaf employees were taken care of. So we got this app that was supposed to like dictate what I was saying, that I had them sitting up front. I was going to make sure that I kept my face towards them so they could read my lips, and had the manager sitting right next to them too. I'm like, I got the trifecta of support. Well, the app was a piece of crap. It didn't work. Turns out that, two of the employees read lips well, but the other two didn't, and they weren't able to kind of communicate back and forth fast enough. That it was a disaster, right? At the end of it, they felt like they missed the whole thing. So I'm sitting there talking about how excited I am that we've got nominated for this prestigious inclusion award. And I've got individuals that don't feel included in the conversation because, it was impromptu. So I didn't have time to, so long story short, they kind of came to me after, and I redid the whole meeting for them. Right. Mm-hmm. But my point being is that was a thing where I screwed up, or when we screwed up. But that happens, right? And there is no pressure. The reality is that people with disabilities, they would rather you try and fail. They'd rather you try and oops, sorry about that. They'd rather you try and fail than not try at all. So you might call people the wrong names. You might do something wrong. Again, but that's why the job coaches are there to support you. And as long as you're trying, that's all you can do, right? It's no different. It's no different than anything else in life, right?
That's so my son wears a cochlear implant, or he has a cochlear implant, and at some point in his life he will have to get a second one. But the biggest thing that I've always said is it doesn't matter what it is. He is going to be treated and taught how to do everything. And I want him to sign as well. Just that way, he's always got multiple ways of communication and being able to connect with other individuals. And it's so interesting when you said the comment about like saying the wrong thing. We can all say the wrong thing at some point in time, and the only way you're going to learn is to mess up. If you don't mess up, how are you going to learn the correct way to do something? Nobody's perfect, and nobody just comes out knowing how to say and do everything, and you just have to take that step forward. But our society puts this, everything has to be perfect. You can't mess up. You can't be human, right? And I think it's such a key point that in anything, you just have to try. So if it's something new to you, you have to try it. You're going to mess up. There's going to be steps along the way. And somebody's going to say something. It doesn't matter. People's feelings get hurt at any point, at any time of the day. And the only way you can fix it is by somebody to say, hey, I would prefer this, or I would really like it if it was that. There's no, true manual that everyone is given on things to say and not say. So I think it's huge that that's really drilled over and over again, that it's okay to mess up. It's just building better is what you have to do, going forward.
100%. And that's across all business, right? I also do a lot of speaking just about printing, right? And the number one question I get from new people entering our industry is like, how did you get it all figured out? Like, or people will be like, well, I couldn't start a business. I don't have this, tribal knowledge of being an entrepreneur. And I'm like, that's not how you figure things out in life. Like, you want to know how I figure things out? I got a resilient face that I fall on all the time. And, you fall on your face enough times, you figure out ways not to fall on it again, right? Until the next thing that makes you fall on your face. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's just how you learn things. But again, in this, you're not on your own. You have these support resources that don't exist in any other sort of aspect of our business. Like, we don't have anybody else that's this hands-on that can come impact our employees, impact our managers, answer questions, So yeah, you're spot on. It's just about trying and doing and leveraging the resources so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But again, you don't have to be ready to hire right now. Like, just reach out. Every state has a vocational rehabilitation office. You just Google your state vocational rehabilitation office. You reach out to them. Either they'll provide you the service or they can connect you with local providers. There's a ton of other folks that you could reach out to as well. But just start with one of these agencies and then have them come to your facility and talk with them, even if you don't have an open role today, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to need folks. And then you have this other hiring agency that knows your business, knows where the needs are. And, with folks with disabilities, it's not one size fits all either, right? So there's a tremendous part of the disability population that, because of archaic laws that our government has, are hindered from working full time, or they lose their Medicaid benefits. So there's a huge population that can only work part-time. So you might only have a part-time opening, right? We also talk about creative employment too, beyond just sort of, because we sometimes, print shops are so small. They're like, well, I don't have just this one role open right now. And we go, okay, well, let's look at a creative employment. So an example of that would be, all right, well, Joe's does 2 hours of data entry work. Sarah's doing, 2 hours of data entry work, and, Jim's doing, 5 hours a day or 4 hours a day of packaging up stuff, right? That's not their core job, but they do it every day. So then we create a new position that is just taking all of that stuff off of all of their plates to put on this individual. And now they can become more successful at what they do best, because they're not bogged down doing the stuff that they think is sort of menial to their day, right? So there's all types of ways that, that this can work, and there's all types of support levels, right? There's folks with disabilities. I actually, I'm not calling anybody out, but I know individuals who are chief operating officers of major corporations in our industry that have autism. Then they just don't talk about it, right? So, like, we're talking about from an executive level down to, hang tag at a shirt, right? There is a huge spectrum of people, and unfortunately, folks with developmental and intellectual disabilities currently have an 80% unemployment rate. So a tremendous amount of them out there ready to go to work. And again, they're going to be some of your best workers. They're going to be some of your most grateful, some of your most reliable. And it will help, again, cultural impact and turnover, retention. It really is quite incredible how much of an impact it can have on your business, but also have on you personally. Like, I don't know about you, but me leaving my job, feeling like I impacted somebody's life is far more fulfilling than feeling like I printed X amount of t-shirts that day. And I want to do both, right?
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful thing. And I want to say, great things about the print industry too, because, when we started on this mission, there was not a lot of people being inclusive, and we're not taking credit for any of it, but we've really seen a great reception every time we do these speaking engagements. Many people reach out, then they set up programs, so we're really starting to see this sort of like industry-wide impact, and the goal, even bigger than that, is once we kind of go from an industry that was behind the times, which is primarily a whole bunch of old white dudes, to a more inclusive, for everything, not just even disabilities. I think that the print industry can then be a trailblazer to show other industries how they can evolve and become inclusive and progressive and reap all the benefits of hiring folks with disabilities. And it will change the community, and that doesn't just change that individual's life. It changed my family's life. Anybody who's got somebody with disabilities in their life, you spend most of your time wondering what's going to happen after you die. And, so to give people financial independence changes the whole family's life as well, and changes the community too, right? My brother went from a dependent living at my parents' house to an independent taxpayer, using public transportation, buying his lunches, at local restaurants and places, putting money back into the local economy. So it's a widespread effect that is not just this one-to-one to the individual. You're really changing the family, you're changing the community, and it's going to change your business. So anything that I could do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And then I think that we're going to be posting some of these other resources that you can find in your area, like APSI and the ARC and Anchor, which is ANCOR. There's a number of them that are all really out there to help kind of support you guys in your mission.
So this one's it's kind of running a little bit together. So as you guys are copying the links that you see in the comments, just break it down like normal websites. So start with a W and then go all the way. So for particularly the Commission for Disability Employment, that's the second line with that www all the way through .org. That's one. This is another where you can see employment policy. There's a little bit cut off, but remember, we're just trying to do our best to get those out to you. That way you guys can copy and paste. And then, like Carly also said, she did put in the comments, guys, that give me a minute. Let me find
While you're
it.
looking that up, I'll give you one more tidbit. So another kind of apprehension we had, especially because you guys do a lot of DTF and we do a lot of DTF, and that's kind of here. When we transitioned into having, expanding this program into our press department, one of the concerns was, we got 300 some odd degrees. Do we have safety concerns? So we did an audit, and we looked at we looked at what we needed to be done, right? And we spoke to the job coaches, and the reality was we didn't have to do that much. But what we learned at the end of it was, we're sitting in the managers meeting, and one of the managers goes, "Yeah, we should have done these safety precautions for all employees a long time ago." So again, it also is like helping evolve your business, because you start thinking about it like, maybe I should do individualized training. Maybe we should have, these type of safety precautions. So again, it also helps evolve your business in other capacities as well.
That's but it's so true, right? Like it's things you would think would be standard or you would do normally, but then you really don't think that deep about them until it's like, oh, well, wait a minute, why aren't we doing this for everyone or originally or onboarding, just part as your normal training process.
Yeah,
I
that's how
will
the same
say,
thing with accommodations too, right? So like people get hung up on, oh, well, I'm gonna have to make all these accommodations for folks with disabilities, but over 80% of accommodations don't cost the company anything, right? And we
mm,
believe that you should be giving accommodations for all your employees, right? We have certain equipment that if you're short, it's very difficult on your back to use. So what do? We built like a pallet platform that you can stand on, right? We've got mothers who, single mothers who have to pick up their kids from school. So we let them come into work an hour early and leave an hour early. Those are all accommodations, right? Or just adding some visual stuff to the training. Like those are accommodations that don't cost the company anything. And by setting an atmosphere where people feel like they can come and ask for those accommodations, that's a beautiful thing because those people are just asking for things that are going to help them be successful for you, right? It's not like, oh, you're doing this accommodation and you're not going to reap the benefits. It's like, no, this is how you're going to set your employee up for success to maximize what they can do, right? So I think a lot of these lessons should be how we treat all employees, and I think you start to see those things even more clearly as you are inclusive and hiring folks with disabilities. You start thinking about things that just maybe never crossed your mind before or never felt like a priority.
absolutely. This, I think I know it was one of the big points that I wanted to be able to set out on today's discussion is just really getting that mindset, the change the mindset on where we're looking, who we're looking at, and really the opportunities out there for all parties. It's a win-win. So they said you've helped me find a new way tomorrow to hire the best talent. Grateful. Several comments have come in saying you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. And not me awesome, you awesome, Jed. You're the one that's
No,
got this.
don't sell yourself short. You are championing inclusion right now as much as I am. You sought me out. You brought me on this show because you felt this was important, and you've got a following of people that you are now saying it to. Whether it's coming out of my mouth or yours, you're a champion of inclusion right now, just as much as me. So feel good about that, and all these awesome and love that people are sending out is just as much coming your direction as mine.
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot. I will say I commend you immensely because not only are you creating opportunity, you're also creating this safe space, and not just for those that have a disability that are, coming to work for you, those that have been working for you and have felt that they can just come to you about topics or things that might be going on with them internally, or for those even that had a disability that you didn't know about. Creating that safe work environment is really going back to that community. But we spend so much of our life working, so why not have that place that feels like home, that is comforting, that is not only rewarding but it's another family. So kudos to you on building that and continuing to propel forward on just sharing.
Yeah, and I think it's so the vocational rehabilitation offices, they'll also send out trainers to help train your employees, right? What it's like to work with somebody with disabilities, and they'll help kind of break down some of those stigmas too. So we recently had them come out and they did like a training session with like 75 or to 100 of our employees who voluntarily signed up for it. And part of it's just breaking down stigmas. Like one of the exercises is like, here's all the jobs in our building, here's all these disabilities. What's the one that's least likely to be able to do what? 99% of people said a blind forklift driver. Turns out they actually have a certified forklift driver who's blind. He only has 10% of his vision here. They ended up installing all these mirrors all over the forklift, and he was able to get certified, right? Minds blown by my employees, like, oh my God, we never thought that. We're putting everybody in a box. Anything's possible, right? Anytime somebody says somebody can't do something, somebody ends up doing it, right? So while we're in this exercise, then it came like an open kind of raise your hand if you want to add something. And one of these employees stood up in front of 75 to 100 people and said, I have a disability, and nobody knew it. And everybody's there's waterworks. People are like, oh my God. She's just like, I just never felt like I could say this to anybody. And that was like one of the best moments of my life last year, because like, I was like, oh my God, we've created an atmosphere that this person really, I mean, you got to have a high comfort level to even just
Yeah.
stand in front of 75 to 100 people to say anything, let alone
Yeah.
make like this like live mission. And then there's mothers, like we have this one mother who stood up then and said, I've got a daughter who's got, hearing problems, and because of the work that you guys do is why I didn't leave to go to Amazon to make an extra $1 an hour. Like, I feel like I'm making an impact here. And then, I said, oh, well, do you know how to sign language? And she's like, no, not yet. And, but I know I have to learn. And I was like, well, how about we subsidize you learning how to do sign language, and then you help support, training our deaf employees. Just like beautiful moments like that happen that you just can't put a price tag on that. It really is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that's incredible. I feel like we could probably talk another hour on just opportunity, resources, what you've built, how it started from one to how many did you say disability wise employees?
So we have 250 employees, over 10% have disabilities. And then we also have a school to work transition program with the local county school system where we have 12 interns a semester. They come for 2 hours a day. They get assigned an on-site job mentor. The goal is to make them independent workers by the end of the semester, some quicker than others. And then if it's a good fit for them when they transition out of high school and a good fit for us, then they get the opportunity for full-time employment. So the individual I mentioned, who's our top warehouse employee, actually came from that program. They get high school credit. They learn how to, and some of them aren't even looking to come work for Stakes. My favorite employee from the last semester, he was asked in an interview, if he's excited to come work for Stakes after he transitions out of high school. He said, no, I'm just working here to build my resume to get my dream job at Home Depot. And good for Quinn, man. I love that guy. And I'm glad that, we were a platform to help him get there.
Absolutely. I mean, the honesty is real and I love it. I mean, he's just excited about the future, right? Like he's just building everything that he needs to. So we can wrap up. What is one piece of information that you would love to give people on just going out there and looking into fulfilling those roles or those needs that they have within their business with people with disabilities and all of the websites? Do you have one piece of nugget of information?
You don't have to have an open position. You don't have to know if you want to do this. You don't have to have any information whatsoever. All you have to do is reach out to a disability employment service provider in your area, and you can go through your state vocational rehabilitation office, or you can just Google them, and just reach out to them and start the conversation, because I think that you will be impressed with how easy it is to get a program set up. I think you'll be impressed by the support that you can have, and again, just start the conversation, because again, I'll say it for probably the third time: if you're not hiring folks with disabilities, you're leaving out the biggest minority in this country, and by doing that, you're ensuring that a huge portion of the population that has some of the best employees that you could have, you're just not even looking at that. And so, just start the conversation and let it see where it goes. And even if it's starting as little as, hey, let me just hire somebody on part-time or just seasonal, and then see the impact, see the feedback you get from your employees. And chances are you're just going to keep doubling down and growing the program, and because of the successes that you have from it. So I greatly appreciate you having me and providing a platform to help, reach out to more people in the industry and about this opportunity to hire folks with disabilities. Hopefully, this has been a fulfilling conversation for them, and they've gotten enough resources to get started. And again, this is a passion. This is a passion for me, as it's probably obvious already. So my LinkedIn has been posted twice in the chat, I can see. So, I'm more than happy to send you in the right direction as well if you want to reach out to me.
Guys, you can also follow Jed, Stakes Manufacturing on Instagram, and that's STAKES MFG, not steaks like the food. So go follow them on Instagram, stay connected with him that way. And like Jed said, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. Carly has popped his link in the comments. One thing that I was just, as we were talking, Jed, the Heat Press for Profit group on Facebook is a great community, and we always share the podcast in there as well. But I'll make sure that we have some type of document that we can post with all the links that you recommended. So for those of you that are not in the Heat Press for Profit community on Facebook, go pop in there, go join it, and we'll work on getting a PDF with clickable links. That way we can just have like an easy resource tool for people to grab. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in live with myself and Jed. This conversation has been absolutely incredible, and I hope to do it again, sometime in 2024. If you're not following our channel, go ahead and subscribe. That way you can stay up to date with all of our new episodes. Now, keep in mind, this episode will publish to all platforms where you can stream podcasts next week. And of course, wrapping up for 2023, our last episode of the year will be next week with myself, Josh, and Jenna. And then we will kick it off, I think, like the second week in January for 2024. Thanks so much for tuning in live. Jed, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. And if anybody wants to read more about Stakes, you can find us at stakesmfg.com, STAKES-MFG.com. There's more stories. There's tons of videos posted in the news section, interviews with employees. So if you want to dig in and see more about our program, our facility, or the services that we offer, please don't hesitate to reach out. And again, thank you again for your support and having me today, and happy Friday to everybody.
You're so welcome. Bye, guys. We'll see you next time.